Hey, can I get a discount? Can you give me a deal? Can you give me a break in some way? Hey, I'm just looking for you to help me out. If you've been in business long enough, you've probably heard someone say something like this to you when it comes to buying your services. Wouldn't you like to have customers who say, man, I totally see the value in it and I'm absolutely going to pay full price? Well, this isn't like fantasy or a dream or what have you. Those of us who've been in business long enough know there is an answer that you say whenever someone asks for a discount, and there's a way that you can protect the full value of your services and get paid what you actually deserve. Hey, my name's Blake Benz. I'm the host of the Good Advice Podcast. We've had this little podcast going for almost 6 years now, and we cover all the things from sales, management, leadership, basically running a business from top to bottom. And there's no fluff on this podcast. There's just good advice. If you're tuning in for the first time, welcome to the show. If you're a longtime listener, welcome back. Thanks for being here today. And if you are a longtime listener, you know that before we jump into our conversation, we're going to have a word from one of the quick businesses that sponsors the podcast. Of course, if you've ever thought about advertising on the show, you can always reach out, Blake at goodadvicecoaching.com. And if that's not your thing, but you like the podcast and you want to support the podcast, you can always check out our Patreon. It's at patreon.com/goodadvice. All that to say, I'm excited to jump into this conversation today about offering discounts and why you probably never should. We'll be right back. Talk soon. When disaster strikes in your home, do you know who to count on? I'm talking about when water damage, fire damage, or mold becomes a problem in your house. You need someone that you can trust who's going to get your house back in working order. That's why I love recommending Best Option Restoration here in Northwest Arkansas. Best Option Restoration is the perfect choice for when you need that initial response for damage in your home. They're a national leader here in our Northwest Arkansas community, and they are restoration specialists that can give you the peace of mind you need when you're facing the unthinkable. Your home is somewhere special, which is why you need someone who sees the value in your home and wants to get you taken care of as quickly and efficiently as possible. Best Option Restoration is so committed to helping you with your home that they have an answer line that's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where you can talk to an actual person about getting a specialist out to your home and resolving whatever damages you're seeing in your house. So if you experienced fire damage, water damage, or discovered mold in your home, call Best Option Restoration today to restore your house back to the home you love. Call 479-458-8840 or click the link in the episode description to contact Best Option Restoration today. All right, so this question has come up a few times in recent weeks. First time it came up was at our Tuesday morning growth group. If you're a local listener, you got to come to our growth group. It's on Tuesday mornings at Red Kite Coffee in Springdale. And it's about a dozen business owners who, man, we're just passionate about growing our business. There's no selling of any kind. There's no pitching. It's literally a growth group because we get together and we talk about how do we grow our businesses. But someone asked the question in our growth group. They said, hey, what do you say to friends and family who ask for a deal? What do you say to friends and family who ask for a little bit of help? This has come up a couple of times, not just on the podcast. I did an episode, man, it was probably years ago at this point, probably 4 or 5 years ago, but it was called Real Friends Pay Full Price, which probably sounds a little sticky there. It's kind of like, ooh, I don't know. Is that rude? Is that brutal? I don't know. But the whole reason I had published that episode was because I had been on a phone call at the time. Again, this was 4 or 5 years ago. I had been on a phone call and it was a friend of mine. They had asked for a favor to get on the phone call. And at the end of the phone call, they said, hey, you know what? I want to respect your time. I know we're friends, but I want to respect your time and I want to pay you what this hour costs. I don't care what it costs. I want to pay you what it is. So, and I really appreciated that. I thought, wow, that is someone who isn't just playing the friend card. They understand the value of what I'm offering. So this got brought up at our Tuesday morning event, and then it came up again yesterday. I was sitting down with someone and they said, "Hey, what do you think about discounts? What do you think about offering discounts?" Many of us, if we've been in business for a long time, or at least a while, we've inevitably come across someone who has asked for a discount in some way. And I'm not even just talking about like we all have like that parent or like relative or somebody who, they're just the haggler, right? Like you go to the gas station and they're haggling with the attendant and you're just like, dude, they're not going to give you a discount on gas. Like, come on, man. Like, you're kind of in the corner. I'm not with that person. I'm getting like a very specific detail, by the way. Like, I am making this up, but I know it sounds so specific. You're probably thinking like this happened to Blake. But I have been in that awkward situation where, you're with someone and they're asking for a discount and you feel like, shrinking into your chair. You're like, I couldn't be more embarrassed having this conversation right now, right? So I'm not even talking about necessarily that kind of person who, everything needs to be a deal. I am, though, talking about the type of customer you want to attract. And more importantly, what we're ultimately talking about today is how to make sure you're charging what you want to charge with the right customer that you want to buy from you. Today's conversation is a lot more, I think, relevant for those of us who sell high ticket offers. When we say high ticket, what we're talking about is you're not selling. I was having coffee with a guy who sells steak seasoning. I think it was $6 or $7 a bottle. That is not a high ticket offer, right? A high ticket offer, we're typically talking 4 and 5 figures plus. A lot of times it's like a consulting package. It doesn't have to be consulting. It could be like a just very niche premium service. But it's not like a quick purchase for someone. It's not something designed for the average consumer to drive out, I'm going to go run a quick errand and buy this. So when we talk high ticket, there is quite a bit implied with that. You're probably an expert in your field. You've probably drilled down on your offer. You've probably had some success, I would hope, right? In some form with your buyer. And understanding the value of selling a high ticket offer means deeply understanding who is your customer and who's not your customer. We've talked about this before on the podcast. I think it came up recently, actually, in terms of the episode. I had an episode recently, I think it was called How Do I Price My Stuff? And I touched on it there. You have to understand in business, there is never going to be a shortage of bad customers who want a deal from you. I have a customer who's an electrician. We were having this conversation just the other day, and he was talking about, getting phone calls from people who they wanted the job done yesterday and they don't want to pay him very much, but they want him to come out right now. He talked about someone on Memorial Day who called him and was like, I need you here now. And it's a holiday weekend. And I was telling him, you're never going to have any shortage of those kinds of people. That is the majority of people that's out there. So you're never going to have any shortage of people who want a deal, who want a discount, or what have you. I think doing business well means understanding implicitly who is my customer and who is not my customer, and what customer is actually good for my business. I was having coffee with another friend of mine. She does life insurance. She was talking about helping people who need to improve their credit score. And then she was talking about people who she had helped previously, who had their money in the stock market and found a lot of value moving it over to this life insurance policy. These are two very different kinds of customer. The person who needs their credit score helped is probably not as financially well off as someone who is putting their majority of their money in the stock market. Now, neither one of these I don't think is implicitly better than the other. I think that sometimes when we run a business, we try to run a business that takes both of those customers rather than really understanding that your business identity is formed around being intentional about the kind of customer you're going to serve. If you're going to serve the person who needs credit score help, that is a different conversation than the person who has their money in the stock market, right? But let's get back to this question of giving discounts. What you need to understand, bottom line, people pay, or rather, people value. Well, let me put it this way. What do people value most? What they pay for. That's it. That's the bottom line. And fam, I will tell you, this applies to many things in life. Your employer who tells you how much they value you and then they pay you minimum wage, they value the role being filled. They value the work being done at a discount, but they do not value you. And I feel like I can say that with 90% confidence, only because I've personally never met a business owner who pays starvation wages and who says, hey, I really value my employees. The people who value their people, the boss who values their people, they pay accordingly. It's the boss who says, hey, I'm going to give out this big bonus because I value them. I want to keep them. I don't want them going elsewhere. I had a person I was chatting with years ago. This was back when Amazon bought Whole Foods. And I think they immediately raised their minimum wage, their starting pay to $15 an hour. And I was having coffee with a guy who's running his business. And he said, hey, I'm losing employees to Whole Foods. What do I do? What do I do? And I said, well, I think he was paying like $10 or $11 an hour. And I said, well, it sounds like you need to pay $15 an hour. And he's like, well, no, I'm looking for other ways to value them. And I said, it's the round peg in the square hole. There's no answer to that. There's no solution to that. The only way to demonstrate value is to pay them accordingly. I think that's also why many of us kind of laugh and are tired of the pizza party jokes, right? The boss who throws the pizza party. You come into the break room and there's 4 pizzas and there's 50 people. There's never enough food for everybody. We can't ever order excess, right? For all the employees. It's got to be just enough. And also with that, it can't ever be good food. It's always got to be where could we find the two things that always bothered me. One of them was not even Domino's or Pizza Hut, but the discount pizza place that was local that, it was $1 a slice. And I'm like, could we not actually cheaper? It was probably 50 cents a slice. And I'm like, is splurging really Domino's? Is it really, would it have really broken the bank to get Domino's? And then the other one is the, when you get those, you go to an event and they have the cold sandwiches that are sliced up into the little, I don't know what these are called, by the way, but they're it's someone made a tortilla and then they sliced them into rings. And so they have that with the toothpick. Well, they probably don't even have the toothpick, but you can get a little ring and maybe a little bit of lettuce. It's all very sad. Okay. And I'm like, guys, if this is the one thing we do, couldn't we have maybe done a little bit more? I went to a holiday party a couple of years ago at Allegiance Title Company. They're a local title company. And it was a Christmas party. It was celebrating their business, celebrating their team. The food was really good. I was like, this is what This is what this should be like. It's a once a year celebration. It should be fun. The food should be good. Like we should spend a little bit of money on this, right? But unfortunately, many of us are very familiar with the alternative, the world of, how do I get as much as possible for as little of a price that I want to pay? And again, the simplest way you evaluate people's value system is where they're spending their money. Where they're spending their money. You can know this is similarly true for your customers. Your best customers, and I'm going to say some details that are going to probably feel like I'm talking about a mythological creature. Like it just, you might laugh and think that customer does not exist. It does exist. That customer does exist. I have had that customer before, and not one time, many times. But it has taken weeding out the bad customers and saying no to other customer or potential customers. But the best kind of customer you can have is the one who said, you name the price, you talk about what it's going to cost, and they say, great, when do we start? Have you seen that meme on the internet, by the way? The meme of, it's like the two different buyers. The one who says, the price is like $5,000. And the person who can afford it says, actually, well, we'll do the other one. The person who can't afford it says, I just need you to know how important this is. And I'm really trusting you to achieve what we talked about. And you need to know how much is riding on this for me and for you. And, I'm expecting some meaningful result. It's like an essay is what the text is. Well, the person who can afford you, who sees the value in what you're charging them and the work you're doing for them, you know what they say? Money sent. Thanks. I have seen this true myself. I had a customer that I charged $5,000 for this last year. Could not have been an easier customer. In fact, this was so easy a customer that I felt guilty that I was not doing enough. Like this person was so easy to work with, easy to talk to. They understood our relationship that I felt like I was almost hounding them. Like, are you good? Do you need anything else? Like that easy of a customer. And I've had many customers like that. I've had customers who, and we talk a lot on the podcast, by the way, about being intentional with your customer and, going the extra mile, not being the business that just fires off invoices and there's never any touch points or conversations. I have one customer who I send an invoice to every month. They do advertising on the podcast. And I feel like I could not talk to them for 3 or 4 months and they would keep paying the invoice. This isn't because of like anything, it's not anything on their end. It's just that they have so much trust in me that it's created a lot of runway for me. Now, because of the way I do business, I'm going to be reaching out to that person. I am going to be taking them to lunch or to, hey, can I do, you want to get together? I'm going to be managing that relationship because I value that customer. I value that person. But just understand the difference between the right customer and the wrong customer. The right customer, hey, I can pay up front. Hey, I can pay in advance. Hey, yeah, that sounds like a great deal. Let's do it. The wrong customer, oh, man, well, what do I get for that? The wrong customer asks you to prove the value of your work. The right customer sees the benefit immediately. Yeah, that sounds great. Like this guy I just mentioned who buys advertising on the podcast. Before we even did business together, he said, hey, I know that advertising, I know marketing, it's a long game. I'm willing to play that game. Meanwhile, do you know how many people have reached out about advertising on the podcast? And I tell more people no than yes for advertising on the show because I always ask them, hey, what are your goals? What are you hoping to see happen? I had someone who reached out about advertising on the podcast, and this person was very desperate for their business, not weird desperate, like desperate for their business. And he said, hey, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I don't know if I'm going to make it. So I want to advertise on your show. I need some help. And I said, you need to keep your money. You need to keep your money because advertising on a random podcast is not a strategy for turning around a business. It's not. As much as me as a business owner, I would love to have more advertisers, but understand, like, it would be wrong of me to take that dollar from you, understanding how this works. I've been doing podcast ads now for over a year. I have never aired an ad that I felt like would turn a business around. It's me, a random dude, talking for a minute before a podcast episode. It's branding and marketing. That's all it is. Now, it's good work, but it's not the right answer for someone desperate for their business. So whenever you're talking to someone, you got to make sure you're talking to the right person. By the way, I think part of that means not going immediately into pitch mode. Like when someone comes to me, and let's just stick with the podcast advertising example. Actually, no, let's do another example. Let's do so I have Podcastable. I have this business that grows podcasts. Someone called me and they said, hey, Blake, I heard you're the guy for podcasting. I need some help. I want you to help me launch my podcast. I could have immediately gone into pitch mode. Okay, great. Yeah, let's talk about it. Here's what it looks like. Here's what it costs. Yada, yada. All right, let's do it. And that wouldn't necessarily, and this person, by the way, probably would have bought right then and there, but may not have been the right customer. So instead, I resisted going into pitch mode. And instead, I said, okay, yeah, well, tell me, why do you want to start a podcast? His answer is he goes, I don't even know, honestly. Oh, okay. Do you listen to podcasts? I don't even know where to find them, just being totally honest. Okay. If I directed you to them, would you are there some shows you'd want to check out? Have you heard of some shows? And he said, again, I don't even like podcasts. I'm probably never going to listen to one. And then I go, so why are you starting a show? And he goes, somebody, this marketing dude said, hey, dude, you got to get into the podcast world. And so here I am doing it. So, sorry, my dog is barking up a storm yet again. So all that to say, you gotta, and specifically in this person's case, I just said, hey, you know what? Don't spend your dollar on me. This won't be a good outcome for you. Podcasting is something where you got to be willing to commit to it. And you probably need to like podcasting at least enough to do it semi-regularly. So again, people value what they pay for, and understand when you give someone a discount, you are immediately undervaluing or devaluing your services. This doesn't mean, by the way, that you might not have simpler payment terms. I mean, I sold a large contract. I think it was like $6,000 or $7,000. And the person said, hey, I think, and they had like a unique circumstance with their finances. And then so I said, hey, let's just do half up front, half at the end. It's no big deal. And he goes, well, if I could put it all together, and actually this wasn't $6,000 or $7,000. I think this was like 11 or 12 grand. He goes, hey, if I can put it all together and pay you in advance, would you knock off 5% for me? And I thought, sure. Now, funny enough, this was 3 or 4 years ago. Funny enough, nowadays, I don't know if I would. But at the time, I thought, you know what? I don't want to have to hound this person for a payment later. They're part of a corporation. I don't want to wait on like this net 30 business, all this kind of stuff. Let me just go ahead and get all the money up front. So that's a different conversation. But when someone says, hey, can I have a discount? Can you give me a deal? Can you help me out a little bit? You can know they don't fully value your services. Now, I don't think I mean that like in a malicious way. I don't think someone's purposely trying to be, mischievous about your business. But what I will say is I've had many great customers who've paid the full price, who've been easy to work with. I cannot think of one good customer who got a discount from the get-go or got a deal or who I'm just going to do you a favor just this one time. I can't think of one situation where that's gone well. And it's because they're coming to you from a place of desperation, and they're usually not in the right place to even fully utilize what it is you're trying to sell. Doesn't mean we can't help people. Doesn't mean you can't have a heart for helping people. And by the way, it doesn't mean that there is not that random situation, that one-off situation where you actually do give someone a deal. You actually do try to help someone out, and it does work out. But more often than not, it just doesn't pan out into your benefit. So why waste the time that you can be using to grow your own business? Hey, that's today's podcast episode. I'd love to hear what you think about it. Let me know what you think about discounts. Do you give them? Do you try them? Do you have a clever sales avenue for how you use them to actually grow your business? I'd love to know about it. You can always reach out to me, Blake at goodadvicecoaching.com. Thanks for listening today. We'll catch you soon. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast and following, as we're posting 2 times a week, every week. All that to say, that's today's good advice. We'll catch you later. See ya.